Cornell, we can't hear you.
Well, hello again, everyone. I think you were greeted by Bobby saying we can't hear you. Glad you could join us tonight. Thank you for joining us here at Awakening Heart Community of Mindful Living at Dallas Meditation Center. And what a beautiful weekend it is. And today is Sunday, March the something, I think the 28th. Yes, so wow, almost April. Easter is next week. And certainly the flowers are blooming. My trees thankfully started budding for leaves. A little bit worried about the deep freeze, but anyway, thank you for joining us tonight. And if you're here for the very first time, welcome. If you found us on YouTube some other time during the week or in some weeks coming up, I'm glad to have you with us too. And you can join us here every week, and we have other activities as well, almost every night of the week and also at noon on Sundays. But just know this is an easy process, and so no need to, try to block all thoughts from your mind or anything like that. No expectation. Just enjoy your time of sitting and breathing. Tonight we will do our usual practice of sitting and sitting meditation, which will be guided. And then we will have a talk. And then a little bit later on, we will have sharing and discussion, and that will be done through Zoom. And so if you're on YouTube, we'll put the link in the chat window for where you can join us for the Zoom call a little bit later, and then you can come over and join us on Zoom. But for now, I'd like to also say in the chat window, please do check in and let us know you're here in the chat window. I'll read those a little bit later on in our program. And if you haven't already, I see we're at 0 likes. So please do press the thumb up on YouTube. That really does help other people find us. And so please like and subscribe, as they say. So anyway, it really does help just to click that thumb up. Let's just sit back, find your breath, calm down a little bit from our rushing around and getting our Zoom going or our YouTube going, whichever way you're joining us at the moment. And so sit back and listen to 3 sounds of the bell, and Lisa will guide us in our opening affirmation. If you know it, please say it along.
Noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, the way of joy and beauty. In solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower. Through mindful sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and many cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment.
Hello and welcome everyone. Glad to have you with us. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers would say. So I hope you had a chance to get out a little bit today. And I think even after we're finished, it'll probably be a nice time to go outside and just breathe some fresh air. So thank you for being with us. I hope you will enjoy our time together. We're going to have a special guest in a little bit, and then we'll have an opportunity to share and see one another when we go to Zoom at the end of the talk. So thank you so much. Let's continue our evening with the contemplation before sitting, and then we'll have a wonderful meditation. Sorry, I guess I'm going to read the contemplation before sitting, and that means I need glasses. Okay. The Sangha is invited to go back to our breathing, so that our collective energy of mindfulness brings us together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, generate peace as one body, be free as one body. Let us transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating ourselves from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. We are aware that the happiness and suffering of all people is also our own happiness and suffering. We see ourselves in all people and all people in ourselves. We are one with those caught in situations of oppression. We are also one with the oppressors. We are one with the wise and good people who are present everywhere in the world. We are one with those who are able to embrace the whole of this world with their heart of love and their two arms of caring action. We are a people with enough peace, joy, and freedom to be able to offer fearlessness and the joy of life to living beings around us. We see that we are not alone. The love and the joy of great beings who are present in this world are supporting us, not allowing us to drown in despair, and showing us the way of understanding, compassion, and right action. Please enjoy our meditation.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, and dear friends, I think that by now you might be able to guide yourself just as you need to into your sit tonight. And I'm wondering if you can, as you do that, as you find your seat, and you can either lay down or sit in a chair, sit on a stool, sit on a cushion or a blanket, whatever it is that you choose and whatever position you would like. And just see if you can bring some freshness to the way that you bring yourself into settle tonight. Noticing maybe the way that you consistently cross your legs when you sit on your cushion, or the place that you usually sit when you sit in your chair. Can you notice something different about that in this moment? And then, of course, bringing our attention to that base and giving yourself a breath there to where that gravity is, of where your body meets the chair, the cushion, the stool, the ground. And then begin to keep going up your body and checking in. Are your hips aligned? Are they steady? Are they settled? Is your spine straight and regal? And are your shoulders even and reaching down? Can you adjust yourself so that you feel really cozy and comfortable? Letting the crown of your head reach up, your brows smooth, your face relaxed. Just taking a moment, giving each one of those parts a breath. Let your hands rest in your lap comfortably. What can you notice new there? Breathing into your shoulders. Breathing into the crown of your head. And breathing into your forehead and your face and smoothing those muscles. Breathing into your hands, your arms. And tonight, dear friends, we're going to contemplate the concept of impermanence. I'd like to begin with a little story about my morning walk. For some reason, I was up early, around 6:30, and I decided to go for an early morning walk. And I fortunately live very close to White Rock Lake, and so I headed down to the meadow there by the lake. As I walked out into the path of the meadow, I just glanced up, and there was a beautiful, big, low hanging full moon over the lake. And it was so beautiful that it took my breath away. I gasped. And I thought, what a wonder. A minute before, I had had my head down looking at the path, and I had no idea that something that large was looming right there until I looked up. And then I just stood and watched it for several moments, several minutes, in awe. And then I decided, I'm going to make my way up this little hill so that I can see the moon from the top of the hill. So I made my way down the path, across the meadow, and up the hill. And by the time I got up to the top of the hill, about 5 minutes later, I crested the hill and there was no moon. And I thought, that's impossible. How can something so large and present be gone? And so I searched the skies and I thought, where did it go? And I searched and I searched. I thought, I think I'm looking in the wrong place. But what happened was within that 5 minutes, it had gone and settled down behind the horizon. And I had a hard time accepting that. I couldn't believe that it had disappeared in 5 minutes. It was there, and I was in awe, and then it was gone. Impermanence. So let's just take a few moments here and contemplate the impermanence of our breath. Just breathing, noticing your breath all the way through the inhale and the exhale, and recognizing that's a complete cycle. And when that's done, it's over and there's a new breath. So, concentrating on your breath now as our anchor always, and the impermanence of each breath. Qi our teacher, used to teach us that our mind is like the sky and the clouds are like our thoughts, coming and going, just as a cloud crosses the sky. Our thoughts move along and disappear, come in and move along and disappear, come and go. And the same is true with our emotions and our physical sensations. They are also like the clouds, coming and going. I'd like to invite you to think about your day today and see if you can start to recognize all the comings and goings that have happened today. Reflect on your day and see if you can notice the comings and the goings. It may be people that came and went, animals, pets. It could be wakefulness and maybe a nap, so sleep came and went. See what you can discover. coming and going. Breathing in, breathing out, coming and going. And here is a poem by Master Hanh. The wind whistles in the bamboo, and the bamboo dances. When the wind stops, the bamboo grows still. A silver bird flies over the autumn lake. When it has passed, the lake's surface does not try to hold on to the image of the bird. May we enjoy the chanting from Bobby of the Brahmaviharas.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that lovely meditation. And now please join me in chanting the three jewels. We'll chant to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. If you know the words, please join me. We take refuge in the Buddha, the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. We take refuge in the Dharma, the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. We take refuge in the Sangha, the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for that, for leading us in our three jewels, and Jennifer for that guided meditation. I will read the check-ins that you've put in the window, and you're welcome to continue adding those. Nick says, grateful to be with everyone. John bowing in from Oak Cliff. Julie bowing in from spring green leafy treetops. Very nice. Sandy bowing to all. Lisa from Fort Worth bowing in. Sorry, as I get a little too close to this camera. I'm on my laptop today, so the camera's right in my face. And Jen says, bowing in from Dallas. And Jen gave us a very nice presentation yesterday about Avalokiteshvara, very wonderful presentation. And Paula bowing in, so happy to be with everyone. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Bobby for just a bit, because it'll take me here a second to bring our guest in to the room. So you'll see when he's ready, Bobby. So if you can just occupy some time for a little bit.
Okay. So we have a guest with us who's not unfamiliar to us. We're going to be visited tonight by our friend Thich. Thich is a monk studying in a different Buddhist tradition, but still very, very aligned with our tradition. And he's also very much aligned with the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh. So he's always welcome to visit with us here. I think also you might like to know that Thich has his own abbey in Arlington, and I know that he has some things online. So maybe he'll tell us about that, and we can check it out. So please welcome Thich.
Bowing in Sangha, so happy to be here today. I was almost scared I wasn't going to be here because I was confused about where I was supposed to be. I think Bobby thought that I was doing this from my house, and I thought I was coming here. And good thing Cornell was here, and appreciate his wizardry with the computers and all of that kind of stuff. So it works out well. Thank you, Bobby, for the introduction. Yes, my very small temple is in Arlington, Texas. It's called Budding Dharma Buddhist Temple, and it is small. I've just reconfigured the temple itself so that hopefully in May I can reopen, and we can accommodate maybe up to a dozen people. Not quite having the 6 foot of space between us, but probably 3 to 4 foot of space between us. And of course, the hope is also that everybody's running out and getting their vaccinations. I am now doubly tapped with the needle, so I feel really good about that. And I hope everybody takes the opportunity to get the vaccination when you can. And I thank Bobby for inviting me here. This always feels like a second home. Before I was in robes, I had heard Brother Chi sing as he was doing Lenten, which is very, very timely because we are in the season of Lent. And that's where I first heard Brother Chi sing. And as I walked into novice robes, I began to come here because I didn't really have a sangha. I didn't know what that was, but my teacher said I needed it. And the minute I walked into this location, well, it was actually the other location, but with this group in sangha, I knew that there was a reason my teacher pushed me to do it, because this sangha is certainly filled with beautiful and wonderful, peaceful people, and I always feel welcome here. My ministry has grown. I am now a chaplain at the Medical City Hospital, so I'm doing rounds there 1 or 2 days a week. I've also been doing prison ministry, which has been a year since I've done it, but I just got notice that the prison is opening up again. So I'm making the assumption that I'll be able to go back in and share the Dharma and the teachings of the Buddha with the men incarcerated in this prison. We're also doing, with my teacher's temple in Trout Lake, Washington, we have quite a few Zoom projects going on as well. For about a year now, we've been doing Saturday Zoom meetings and services. And of course, anybody that wishes to join us, just look for Mount Adams Buddhist Temple website, and you'll get the Zoom ID and all that kind of stuff. They start early there as far as they're concerned, which is 8:30 in the morning on Saturdays. However, it's always 10:30 in the morning here in Texas. So hopefully you won't get that confused. We've also done a few 1-day and 3-day retreats totally on Zoom. And I was a skeptic at how well that could go. But it has gone really well. And we get upwards of 40 to 45 people from many places, zooming in from Hawaii, California, Texas, Oregon, and Washington, California, whether I said that or not. So that's pretty much what's going on in the world of my Buddhist practice. But today I'm here. I told Bobby that I thought I wanted to talk about emotions and Buddhism. And there was kind of a reason that I wanted to talk about that this week, because I have been aware of emotions that I wasn't really quite aware of as we have gone through this year of isolation and change in how we live. And I thought I would talk a little bit about that. The Buddha, which many of us, in great reverence to his ministry, think of him in very high terms. But I like to think of the Buddha as a human being. About 2,600 years ago, there was a young man in the northern part of India that belonged to the Shakya clan, and he was a prince. It's because his father was the king, and his father had great plans for him. And he lost his mother very early in his life and was raised by his mother's sister. And he was a human being that experienced all of the emotions that I believe we all share. Maybe he did it on a really high level because he had everything he could even want. I think he wanted. He had, prized jewels, wonderful clothes, great food, just everything that a privileged young man at that time could want. And if you think about that, and if you've got young people in your life, or if you can still remember back to when you were a young person, this is getting more and more difficult for me as I age, but or at least I can make it up as I go. Think about the emotions that you went through as a younger person, or that you're experiencing with younger people in your life today. And they can change on a dime. It's just, one moment happy as heck and the next moment down in the dumps. Of course, a lot of that has to do with biology and hormones and all that kind of stuff that goes on. But the Buddha experienced that as well. He was a man. And as he reached manhood, he married, he had a child, but something was nagging at him. Some questions about why is life this way? What is this about? And he struggled with it for quite a while. His father wanted him to be a strong king and to grow the Shakya clan and make it, the greatest in that area at the time. And he didn't really see himself in those terms. He tried desperately to be what his father wanted him to be, but it just didn't fit comfortably. Think of the emotions that could have gone on with our historical teacher, the Buddha. He knew what all of those emotions, as he enlightened, what those were. We are in the Lenten season now, and where we get to see, the figure, the historical figure of Jesus, experiencing some of the most intense emotional things that are associated with his life and his story, which will be honored and brought to great light on Easter Sunday, when he transforms from this man, this God man that Christianity claims him to be, to this Godhead. So even Jesus understood all of the emotions that the humans go through. I remember going through my catechism training where that was a big deal for the teachers to tell us that Jesus knew how we felt. So don't think he's that far away from understanding, why you feel the way you do. So the Buddha, being this wonderful prince, finally makes a decision. I got to go out and find out some answers. And he left his wife, and he left his child, he left his family, and he went out and roamed among the peoples of India. And he became what is known as a mendicant. And this mendicant lifestyle was very, very, very intense. They believed in distressing their bodies and distressing their spirits and going long periods without sleep or eating minimal food, all of these things to try to force the spirit to come forth and provide answers. And the Buddha did this for a number of years. There are stories of he and his band of followers pretty much naked, running around the forest, just trying to figure it out. And of course, the Buddha was highly recognized for being one of the advanced mendicants. All the schools that he went to, for very short periods of time, the teachers would recognize this young man's ability to transcend his emotions and transcend his humanity, and finally get to a point where the teacher said, I can teach you no more. Why don't you take over the school or take over the monastery? And again, this mendicant, this student, this man searching through his emotions and through his feelings, had to say, no, I can't. And he went to so far as to he was almost at the point of death. And he was rescued from that when he recognized that was not going to be the way of enlightenment for him. And the story is that, he sat under a Bodhi tree, a ficus tree, if you will, and just said, I'm going to sit here until I find the answers. And that is when he became the Buddha. Now, the Buddha was just simply a common expression in this time of India that said this is about, the term Buddha was given to people that they thought were awakened or enlightened. Now, during his period of sitting, his emotions were also very evident. If you read the story is about this demon, Mara, who comes forth and gives all of this stuff to the Buddha to contemplate while he's trying to settle himself, trying to understand his emotions. I find it sort of gratuitous that most of the demons, the challenges to the Buddha were done from Mara's daughters. I think that's just really tells you where the mind's male intellect was, and it made it all the women's fault in trying to make the Buddha get off of his path. But none of that worked. But these were all the emotions that he went through. If you think about Christianity, Jesus at this time of Lent went into the desert and fasted. So the story is for 40 days and 40 nights, and supposedly this demon, this Satan figure, took him to the highest mountain and said, look at this world. I will give you all of this if you will worship me. And again, imagine the emotions. Now, we're attributing Jesus with some God stuff that we don't attribute the Buddha with. But the Jesus figure, the Jesus person, had these human emotions as well. The Maras, the demons, presented some very, very tough emotions for him. He had to look at greed, he had to look at hatred, and he had to look at delusions, which today we call the three poisons. And those three poisons are the same poisons that affect us in our daily life. They are counterbalanced, if you will. Emotions are not all negative or feel bad emotions. There are some positive emotions as well. And the ones that sort of counteracted those ones that were considered the three poisons were generosity, giving of dana, loving kindness, which we call maitri or metta, and wisdom, prajna. So some emotions we have a feeling of unhappiness, or something about the emotions may lead us to happiness. Okay, think of the different emotions in your life. When you get to hug your grandchildren for the first time after this pandemic, what is the emotion to that? Who could call that bad? As we all suffered through this pandemic, what were the emotions that we had through that? Some of them were scary, some of them were fear, but we can't really label them bad. We just have to recognize them for what they were. The pandemic indeed was a boiling pot of emotions for many of us. It changed how we lived personally. It changed how society was interacting. And it even caused some physical changes in that we couldn't touch each other. We couldn't hug each other. We couldn't be within 6 feet of each other for fear of contracting this awful disease. So all of that during this 1 year of pandemic rested on top of all the other emotions that we normally would feel. Loneliness, joy at the sight of the moon, as we were told, somebody noticed this morning. All of those emotions were still going on. And yet during this pandemic, they have been intensified to the point where the level of people who are feeling disconnected and sort of maybe want to have some therapy over this has risen. People who have gone back to addictive behaviors of overeating or alcohol or drugs has risen greatly. That stuff is all driven by emotions. All of our thoughts are connected in some way or another to emotions. We have them. They're not bad. They're not good. They just are. When I when I've been teaching this lately in the Zoom sanghas on Saturdays, I've had a couple people. I've got some more students now from this group, and so I meet with them on phone calls, these Zoom calls during the week. And some of the statements that they make, I understand. They was like, I just want this intense emotional feeling that I have. I just want it to stop. I want it to go away. I want it to be reduced. And the truth is that we can reduce it, but we cannot do away with all emotions. Emotions are attached to our thoughts. Think about it. Think about a thought, even a thought that is not really there with us for a long time, that's not really affecting us much, has an emotion connected to it. And so emotions are a part of being a human being. So if we can't stop all of our emotions, and I don't know how many of you were Spock people, but that was Spock's big thing. He had no emotions, except during, I think it was called Panfar, which was, his time of kind of like a mating season for Spock. Then he was a nut case, but we can't be Spocks. We have emotions and we have to understand them. Our emotions generally come as high and low responses to what we want, what we don't want or we want to avoid, and impermanence. Just simply not rationalizing our thoughts around things that come and go. Again, kind of like our story this morning, about this walk this morning, this disappointment that where did this beautiful moon go? That very first emotion was a heavy emotion. So you've got to understand it's just really obvious that we're not going to be able to avoid them. It's our approach and our reactions to emotions and our desires that our practice helps us with. We are attached to judgments, which can drive control of our emotions and choices. Think about your childhood story of Goldilocks. Do y'all remember Goldilocks' story? Maybe you've told it to your children or to your grandchildren. I still remember it. I did have to look it up because I couldn't remember everything that Goldilocks did in this house. But she came upon this house, and it was occupied by 3 bears, but the bears were out. And she walked into the house, and she just kind of had choices to look at. And she looked at, first of all, there were bowls of porridge sitting on the table. And Goldilocks tasted the porridge and, ooh, this one's too hot. Don't like this one. And then she tasted the next one and, ooh, this is too cold. I don't like this one. And then she tasted the third one and she said, this one is just right. And that's the one she finished. And then she, after having this wonderful porridge that the bears had left out, she decided to sit down and she sat in one chair and she said, oh, this chair is too hard. I'm not sitting here. And then she sat in the next chair and she said, oh, this chair is too soft. I'm not sitting here. And then she sat in the third chair, which was the baby bear's chair. And she said, oh, this one is just right. It kind of was and it kind of wasn't because she broke it. The baby chair broke. So now she's tired and she decides she's going to go off to look for a place to rest, and she finds the bedroom of the bears. And she lays on one bed and she says, oh, this bed is too hard. I can't sleep here. And she gets onto another bed and she says, oh, this bed is too soft. I'll never be able to sleep. And finally, she gets into the bed that is just right and begins to fall asleep. But of course, this is the time when the bears come back home and Goldilocks has to run off, and the bears discover that everything has been sort of disrupted in their home. Now, what does that story tell us? Well, the story tells us that we go through life with emotions about, oh, no, not this one. This is too hot. No, this one's too cold. No, this one's too hard. No, this one's too soft. We make choices about lots of things. Those are our judgments. And in those judgments, lie some of our emotions. And those emotions can bring us to depths of sadness, to depths of joy. It depends on how we react to it. Let's see, where's I'm looking at notes here. If I know you know, I just talk on and on and on, but I actually do notes, trying to stay on track. So what are our emotions driven by? Our emotions are driven by our memories, first of all. Okay, memories of past hurts and experiences of both kinds. Experiences of joy, experiences of sadness, experience of hate, experiences of love. Those emotions are there, and they exist in our memories. I came across an interesting quote that I want to share with you that I just thought hit the mark as far as anger and sadness about that anger goes. The quote was, "If you aren't healed from what hurt you, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you." I'm going to say that one more time. If you aren't healed from what hurt you, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you. Isn't that true? Haven't we all experienced it ourselves, where anger or hurt or despair drives us to make other people uncomfortable that had no involvement in that whatsoever? So our emotions take us there as well. Our emotions are also driven by our expectations. We set up expectations about what we want and what we don't want. And we've had many, many of those, each one of us. And they drive our level of unhappiness and our level of happiness. And that is another cause of our emotions. And then, of course, there are our aversions. You know, nobody wants to be sick. Nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be homeless. And so we have these aversions to this that don't even give us an opportunity to raise the emotion of what does a homeless person feel like? What does a hungry person feel like? What does an ill or sick person feel like? So all of this leads us to where it led the Buddha. We know that he finally came and said, look, living as this grand prince wasn't it. And living as a mendicant wasn't it. Maybe living a middle way, a middle path is the way to this happiness. And that was part of the great awakening of the Buddha, recognizing the middle path. And he spent about the next 40 years of his life taking that apart, every little aspect of it, of the middle path, and teaching that and sharing it and sharing that wisdom about that middle path. So how do we all get to the middle path? Well, if we think about the second noble, the Four Noble Truths, the second one was that the cause of all this suffering is our attachments. And as I've been talking about here, our attachments are connected to our emotions. And therefore, our emotions have an equality to the attachments that we have. So our emotions are inevitable. Again, don't try to squelch them. Lots of people have spent thousands and thousands of dollars going to psychotherapists trying to express emotions correctly and adequately and appropriately. And so please don't try to squash your emotions. Understand them and see them, that they are an inevitable part of our human existence. So how can we work with these emotions in an appropriate way in the middle path philosophy that gives us less suffering and more joy? And my studies and my belief is that it's through our practice of mindfulness, which will lead us to a place that many people call equanimity. In mindfulness practices, we work towards understanding mindfulness in any way that we can. In Pali, mindfulness was called samasati, and it's primarily a state of mind or practice where mindfulness is about the quality and power of mind that is aware of what is happening without judgment and without interference. Now, this description of mindfulness is quite recognizable to anyone who practices secular mindfulness, for it's not necessarily practiced in a religious or spiritual context all the time. There's lots of people making lots of money on trying to teach people how to be mindful. And we get it free of charge through the philosophy of the Buddha. So indeed, mindfulness is not the exclusive territory of Buddhism, but mindfulness is, however, a specialty of Buddhism. So while mindfulness can be practiced quite well without Buddhism, Buddhism cannot be practiced without mindfulness. And I think that's very true. This practice of mindfulness leads us to the ability to practice equanimity. Now, every time this term comes up in any of the classes that or any of the Dharma talks, people get them their eyes crossed and they go, "Oh, equanimity, I don't understand it. It's just so far-fetched and crazy." And you know what? I thought the same thing for a long time. I thought, let me get all the rest of this stuff under my belt and I'll tackle equanimity at some other point. But the truth of the matter is that equanimity was always part of it. It was always part of all of that search to understand how this middle path works, how all of this reducing of suffering in the Noble Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, how does that all work? It's equanimity that brings it to the forefront and brings it to truth and understanding for us. So equanimity, what's the Wikipedia term for it? It says it's a state of psychological stability and composure, which is undisturbed by experience or of exposure to emotions, pain, or other phenomena that may cause others to lose the balance of their mind. Lose the balance of their mind. Middle way, balance. See the difference in that. In Buddhism, equanimity, or as we call it, upeksha, is one of the four sublime attitudes and is considered neither a thought nor an emotion. It is about seeing things as it really is. And so when we're practicing mindfulness, it brings us closer and closer and closer to our connection to equanimity. In mindfulness, moment to moment, the basis of mindfulness is for me to see in each moment what is going on here. And I can make adjustments. So if my anger flares up, for whatever reason, I stub my toe and I'm in pain and I'm angry that somebody left the dog bowl laying out on the kitchen floor and I stub my foot on it. That anger in mindfulness, moment to moment, I see it. And rather than allowing that emotion to play upon my time, my energy, my soul, my spirit, I get to it quicker. And the quicker I get to it through practice, the quicker I come into terms of equanimity. And that I see that there really was nothing about what anybody else did. I can't blame the dog bowl. I can't certainly blame the dog. What can I blame? I don't have to blame anything. It was what just happened. It just is. And that is equanimity for sure. So how do we solidify this mindfulness practice, leading us into this state of equanimity in our lives? And I will tell you, I think it is through meditation. I saw a nice quote about meditation that said, meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we already are, with everything that comes with it, with our emotions, with our unhappiness, with our anger, with our love, with all of those emotions that we have. We will contend with all of our lives until we take our last breath. Fear, all of those they'll be with us forever. It's how we contend with them. And we do that through a sense of mindfulness practice, elevated and magnified by our meditation practice. And then that wonderful state of equanimity where we can just simply see things the way they are. We don't have to color them. We don't have to describe them. We don't have to nurture them. We don't have to dissolve them. We just have to simply see them for what they are. Equanimity is about seeing things the way it is. My teacher and I are now calling this the practice of isness. And so I don't know how that'll fit with you, but I'm constantly using it now. It's just I'm just in isness here on this particular issue. I think I might even be irritating my teacher by telling him that. So I told you the story of Goldilocks and how we were always in there making choices. I'd like to tell you a final story, and this is actually a Zen story. And this is the story of the farmer. And it's in the book Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, which was written by Master Senzaki. And so there was this farmer. And this farmer had a farm. He had to work very, very hard on his farm. He had a small family. He had his wife and his son. And he had one horse. And this horse supplied lots of good things on this farm. The horse plowed, the horse hauled. It did lots of things for the farmer. And the son was responsible for this horse. And one night, the son forgot to close up the corral, and the horse got loose. And the next morning, the father came out and no horse. Couldn't plow, couldn't haul. The horse was gone. And the horse was considered part of the value of this family. The neighbors gathered from far and wide and came around and said, "Where's your horse? Oh my gosh, now you don't have a horse. You're going to be poor. You're not going to have enough food. Oh, your value of in the community has gone way down. Oh, you poor man." And the farmer said, "Maybe so." And so that night they all went to bed. They left the corral open. There was nothing to close it in. And the next morning, what did they find? The horse had gone out into the terrain and found a whole band of horses and somehow became the leader of them all and brought them all back. And now they're in the corral. That's where the horse brought them back. That was his home. And the next morning they get up and now they've got a dozen horses. And the neighbors again came and flocked around and said, "Oh, you lucky man, look at the wealth you have now. You have a dozen horses and this is wonderful. You'll be able to plow a bigger field and you'll be able to haul more things and you can rent them out to your neighbors. Oh, you are so fortunate. You are so lucky." And the farmer said, "Maybe so." So the next morning they slept and they came out, and the young lad, being what young lads are, ambitious and wanting to please his father, decided he was going to try to break one of these new horses that came back in. And so he climbed up on the horse's back and got bucked right off. And as he got bucked off, he broke his leg. Now the neighbors came back because, all this news just traveled around really quickly. The neighbors all came back around and said, "Oh, you poor man, the son who needs to help you do all this stuff. Now he broke his leg and he's not going to be able to help you. And you're going to have to do double work to take care of the son. And, oh, you poor man," said the neighbors. And the farmer said, "Maybe so." And so the king of that region was out and about, and he was out and about looking to conscript young men to join the army. And he came to this farmer's house and he said, "I hear you have a son. I want to take him and put him in my army. We have wars to fight." And the farmer showed him his son and said, "He's just been injured. He has a broken leg. He's not going to be much good in your army right now." And the king looked at the boy and said, "No, you're right. I'm not going to be able to use them. And again, the families came around and said, oh, you lucky, lucky man, you got, your son broke his leg and he's not going to be taken out like all our sons are. You are so lucky. And the farmer said, maybe so, maybe so. And so what's the moral of all of that story? The farmer was sitting in equanimity. He was neither overly joyous or overly despaired about any of the situations that he found himself in. Any one of those emotional situations in that story could have taken him and his family in all kinds of directions. But he sat with it and he understood, and his response was just maybe so. And so I would encourage all of us to have a maybe so practice. Just taking a look at all the challenges in our world and in our lives, and simply saying everything about this life could be maybe so. Not putting anything else on it, not wrapping it up and putting a bow on it, not trying to bury it away and do nothing with it. Just simply look at it as it is. Maybe so. It's real. It is. It is part of is. Thank you so much. I have a little cartoon that I don't know if I can show this to you. What you see here is this grizzled old monk who's sitting on his rug. If anybody says it looks like me, remember I shaved my head. He's still got some hair. But what it says is, I can't remember, being in the now today sure ain't like the old now I remember. So he's not sitting in equanimity at all. He's just grouchy, and so it'll show you that even an old monk can miss the point. I thank you very, very much for the opportunity to talk to you about Buddhism, emotions, and equanimity. And let me offer now a slight offering in the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility and with the awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and in the world. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samasam buddhassa.
Oh, that was exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you, Taisi. I think it's always good to not only be reminded, but to have some really good examples of equanimity, because equanimity can be a difficult word to understand, a difficult state of being, because it's so easy to get lost and caught up in emotions. But you've given us some really good tips and good reminders, so appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Taisi. And we'll be closing this session on YouTube shortly. We'll do our closing. Lisa will lead us in our closing 4 vows of the awakening beings. But in the meantime, before then, you can look over in the chat window if you're over on YouTube, and you'll see the link for Zoom, and you can join us. And we'll be there a few minutes or a few seconds or so after the closing, and you can join us there for Q&A with Tai Z and sharing. And also I'd like to remind you, coming up, besides all of our usual activities, I believe it's on April 10th, Michael Ferraro will be offering Safe Conversations workshop for couples or singles. And you can find information about that on our website, but also check the weekly newsletter or the weekly email that we send out. If you're not getting that, let us know so we can add you to that list. There's where you'll find all of the other activities that are going on. That's coming up on April 10th. You'll need to register for that right away. So in a moment, I'll say goodbye to you on YouTube, but first we'll have Lisa lead us in the 4 vows of awakening, and then we'll head over to Zoom. And if you're already on Zoom, stay put. If you're on YouTube, find that link and join us.
Please join me in the closing chant if you happen to know the words. Countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize.